Chapter 12. In L.A.
They spoke for a while longer. Taylor and Trisha promised that they would soon be back. Ashley assured them to take their time, and that she had it taken care of. However, after the call ended, she sighed and sat down for a moment. I hope they do make it quickly, she thought to herself. Having Taylor around would be nice, but having Trisha back would add to her confidence greatly. Trisha had always brought so much to the group. She was ashamed, but if Ashley was honest with herself, she had not noticed how much until she had left with Taylor. Trisha had offered Ashley a personal refuge from the leadership. Trisha had been as much a leader of the group as Nathan and her had ever been. She shrugged, got up, and stretched her legs out. She had work to do. She knew Trisha would have told her to take a break. However, she was not here, and Ashley pushed herself on. 6 hours later, Ashley rubbed her eyes. She had been up too long again. She needed rest. She put away the laptop she'd been working on. She worked hard to spread the knowledge, but it did little good. Most people were talking about or trying to avoid the riots. There was a great amount of vampires in L.A. that were converting, and although the riots had not come to L.A., the murder rate had gone through the roof. This fact was also pretty much overlooked because of two reasons. The first was most of these victims in these murders were people the police were happy to see go. And the second, the fact that the police were extremely short-handed, sending out all their reserves to other areas that needed them. The police all over the world were scrambling to get some control over the situation. Knowing the truth, Ashley wished them luck, but realized what the outcome would be. She also came to the grim truth that her and her band of vampires were the only ones that stood a chance of changing the tide. In truth, she didn't even know if they stood a chance. Ashley felt that they had gained quite a few vampires on their side, but now she worried about how fast the Nightshade moved. If these riots were basically gangs of vampires converting anyone into their numbers were growing much, much faster. Her confidence was beginning to wane a little. She began to worry that she was leading her friends to a slaughter. Strangely enough, Taylor's voice came into her head. They must be stopped, and we'll be the ones to stop them. You know that. He had said that the night of the first real battle. She sat up in her chair a little. Even that far away, he offered guidance. She smiled to herself. She went back to her work. Her eyes were starting to droop when Austin walked in. You look like hell, he said to her. Thanks, pal, Ashley replied, smiling. I'm all right. Get out of here and I'll let you know if they call back, Austin said. She was about to argue that she could work for a bit longer, but at that second a wave of tired washed over her. She offered a smile as thank you. All right, let me know, she said and stood up, stretching the hours out of her back. She walked slowly to the mansion. Nathan had a cup of coffee for her. You look like, Nathan stated. Hell, I know, Ashley grumbled. Well, I was going to say shit, but close enough, Nathan smiled. I don't think any of us are ready for this fight. Maybe we should run, Ashley said. Let Taylor talk to his parents. He may be able to convince them to help us, Nathan replied. And even if he can't, a bunch of random people on the street are not going to be much against our group, Nathan said with confidence. Hell, look at the L.A. Nightshade. They were trained to fight, and we took them down. We didn't start this fight to back down in the middle. We just need to fight smart, piss off the right people, just like we did before, Nathan said. Yeah, Ashley remarked. The last 10 years had been insane. She had lived in a small town in the middle of nowhere, and in her senior year of high school, she had been out with a few friends drinking. She was dreaming about living somewhere else. That night, a young man that had never been there before was at the spot that they all partied. She had thought he was interesting and started talking with him. She had fallen for him, or maybe more the fact that he was not from there. A few days later, she was off to Las Vegas with an address in hand. She got there, but he was not there. So she spent 2 nights wandering around Las Vegas, and that was when Jean-Pierre befriended her. He had acted the part of a concerned person, his intention to put her in the blood bank with the others, but her smile and innocence had swayed him from his original purpose. He had decided to convert her to a vampire, and although he had never told her, he had taken her in and partied her into submission. She lay naked on the bed, and he flipped her over. She pivoted her hips to take him doggy style, but he did not. He sank his fangs into her spine, and everything went black. When she woke, she grabbed her clothes and got dressed. She knew that he had done something very new to her. "What did you do to me?" she asked. "Unlock the world. That is all," Jean-Pierre replied. "What the fuck are you talking about?" she barked at him. She was having a hard time focusing. Things were moving so fast through her head she could barely keep up. "You are now a vampire girl," he said, and broke out into a dramatic laugh. She did not believe it at first, but as the nights wore on, she started to believe and to understand. Later that week, Jean-Pierre had taken her out to an old warehouse. It seemed abandoned, but they took an elevator down. He had given her a full tour of the blood bank. There must have been close to 300 humans in there, all of which were drugged, being fed by IV, and constantly being harvested for blood. Ashley was horrified and started to feel as if she was in a bad movie. After he showed her the blood bank, as if it were the pride of his collection, Ashley had known that she was in the wrong place. She knew she wanted nothing to do with Jean-Pierre and the blood banks he was so proud of. She had bided her time and figured out the best way to get away. The evening before Jean-Pierre had promised her a live kill to increase her power, she had slipped out of the room and made for the door. She snuck away and headed for California. Jean-Pierre had not followed, losing interest in her and moving on to his next victims. A few weeks later, she ran into Byrne and his group in California. He took her under his wing. She would have stayed with Byrne's group. However, it soon became clear how Ashley felt about standing by while bloodlust vampires went after humans. Byrne had tried desperately to convince her that fighting would only bring her own death. However, Ashley could not stand by. It was not in her character. She soon met Nathan, and their grand ideas started to take shape. They had started to realize the scale of what they were taking on. Ashley had started to wonder if Byrne had been correct, until Taylor had walked into the picture and changed everything. She shook off the thought. She smiled at Nathan. "How are you doing?" she asked. "Seems like every time I have it figured out, something blows it out of the fucking water," Nathan said. "I know how you feel on that," Ashley said. It had surprised him when he found out his father was in league with the vampires, although not as one might think. His father had always been on a personal journey to find the extreme in all things. It did not come as such a shock that he had searched out the vampires and befriended them. He had been a remarkable man, always concerned about the world as a whole. Nathan had admired him so much, and had always wanted to be like him. It had stung a little when Thorant had mentioned that his father had gotten multiple chances to change into a vampire. Not because he did not understand his father's choice. His father had always said that one must be happy with what they are given. So it did not surprise Nathan in the least. Now Nathan had to admit, he wished that night would have never happened. Nathan had been desperate to be something next to his father's legacy. He tried the party scene, but a gift from his father never let him get out of control. His father had thrown large parties and had drank with his guests, but during the night he would switch to water. Nathan did the same, except he would switch to soda, allowing a nice buzz, but not allowing himself to lose his edge. Nathan had dabbled in drugs, but they never interested him much. He'd even thought of acting, but he had met all manner of fake people in his life, and he had always been happy to avoid the whole scene. His father had died, and he slipped into a deep depression. Lonely, he went out to a goth club and met a few friends. They had gone to clubs and drank buckets of coffee in small diners throughout the city. They had not known he was rich, and they treated him somewhat normal. They were all very into vampires. Of course, the discussion turned away from the fictional ones to the real ones. Although they spoke of it lightly, Nathan listened intently, getting all the information he could. He had heard of them a couple times, and he decided he wanted to become one. Nathan started coming up with a plan to make his conversion. Many nights of fruitless searching, but finally he made some progress. That had been the first time he had met Ashley. He was out searching when he ran into Byrne's group. He asked to talk with Byrne, but he had apologized and said no. He mentioned that Ashley had just come to them and needed their help. So Nathan kept going. An hour later, he was in a back alley of a club and 3 vampires, So, 200 grand to change you into a vampire tonight? He said, his eyes red with hunger and green with greed at the same time. Yes, after I come back. Here's 5,000 to prove that I can do it, Nathan said, and he shoved a wad of cash in his hand. You know how to do it, right? Nathan asked. Oh yeah, the vampire lied. He bit him in the neck, and Nathan had an extremely painful conversion because of the position of the bite. After a few days he came back into the world, and again ran into Byrne. Him and Ashley had gotten along famously. I sometimes wish I had not been converted, Nathan sighed out. Ashley raised an eyebrow. Why, because your father wasn't? She asked. Well, no, but maybe, I don't know, Nathan stammered. What about you? You must hate what has happened to you, Nathan returned. Not at all. Okay, I would have liked to have gotten here a different way. But I'm proud of what I've become, and I'm proud of what we've done together. It's not just Taylor, you know. He's part of it, but all of us are changing the world right now, Ashley stated solidly. Yeah, I'd feel a little bit better if he was here, though, Nathan pointed out. On that, we agree, Ashley said and gazed out the window.